Okay, everybody, welcome to Drew's virtual happy hour, the first daytime edition of the happy hour. Today's guest is someone who grew up on an island in Maine. She's a rum tender. She's a former university of Denver Pioneer, I believe is the mascot I was able to find,
The
and
pioneers, yeah.
she is currently the North American market manager for Maison and Velier. Our guest today is Kate Perry. Kate, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here virtually.
Yeah, right. So I know we just talked about all that fun stuff and how this is kind of the new normal. And one thing I'll say about doing kind of like my deep dive on the research, because I think at this point I'm about 25-ish each into doing these interviews, and there's a ton of information out there on you, which is really, really great. And it's all obviously rum related, for the most part. And then you do have to kind of wade through the pop singer, but for the most part, it's good to find a lot of
Yeah.
stuff. So my first question is, what question are you sick of answering in these interviews?
Oh God. Um, no, it's all good. It's all positive. I've done a couple, and it's really fun to kind of see the different takes of the angles because I'm definitely most known for being involved in the rum world, but my portfolio is so kind of expansive and so diverse, and there's so much to talk about that everyone kind of has their little viewpoints and points that they want to kind of address. So yeah, if I never had to hear Katy Perry references for the rest of my life, that would be great.
So the one thing I was trying to avoid, I nailed in the first 2 minutes. Perfect. That's just
It's all good. It's getting rare and rare, and hey, I mean, it's memorable, right?
it's very, very memorable. And just so everybody knows, for some of our first time people out here, is if you have questions or anything like that for Kate during this process, there's a chat feature, and so just type it into there, and we'll ask that for you. And sometimes I'll get on a tangent. I'll be going in a direction that people want to hear more about, and just keep me in check, and we'll kind of go from there. It is early out here, but I am drinking one of my rums.
Yes,
So I got some Worthy
I
Park
love that
here.
bottle.
I hope everybody's enjoying some rum, to start your day off.
I just
Or for
have a
you,
glass of water,
it's
sadly.
yeah, you're at the end of your day. So right, because you're 9 hours ahead of us right now.
Yeah, it's just after 8 p.m. here. But sadly I have no rum because life.
Right. Well, hopefully
For the
they'll be
first
able.
time ever, I didn't even pack a bottle of rum. I always have anyone who's seen me out in the market knows I usually have a pretty hefty bag of rum with me. And for this trip, I was like, no, it's going to be 10 days. I don't need to bring a bottle. I can go check out the cool, brandy and wine scene. And so I didn't bring any. And now I'm just kicking myself. I mean, it would be long gone now, but.
Well, yeah. I mean, and just so everybody knows, Kate is currently stuck in South Africa, just due to the whole COVID stuff. So hopefully, she'll be able to return, to rum soon, or at least get some of those rums or wines that are down there. But let's jump into the questions. So
Cool. What you got?
we're gonna go back in time for a little bit,
Okay.
and back to 2012. You start
Yeah.
you start Rumba, and back then, I think it's fair to say rum was not necessarily the most popular spirit in the world. In fact, it was, and still to a certain degree is very much so whiskey driven. And so I'm curious, what was really the driving force behind creating this rum portfolio? Because I also, this rum bar, because I know at the time as well, you weren't really into rum either. And it sparked a trip and you got into it. But at the time it was like, yeah, let's start a rum bar. Was it just kind of like, how does that come about, especially in that time frame?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty wild, like in that time frame and also in that regional location. Rumba was built and still exists and is still completely wonderful in Seattle, Washington, which is about as far away from the Caribbean as you can possibly get. And so I remember it so clearly. I was just sitting up in my office doing some paperwork or something. And my boss at that time, Travis Rosenthal, who I'd worked with for maybe 4 or 5 years at that point, running one of his other programs, he came upstairs and he said, Kate, like, this space came available and I just put a bid down on it, and it's in the same building and our landlords love me, so I'm gonna get it. What do you think about opening a rum bar? And Travis's favorite drink was rum, or so he liked to tell us. He drank a lot of his, let's just say that his palate of rum has vastly improved since 2011 when we were having this conversation. But it was totally his drink of choice. It's what he would order, after the workday. He'd sit down at my bar at the other place and have a rum. I think he was the only one who drank that back bar of rum. And I would just said, man, Travis, like, sounds fun. Love tropical stuff. Know nothing about rum, because they're just, back in late 2011, there just wasn't any information out there. We have such an incredible plethora of books and blogs and Instagram accounts, and like, there's so much information available to us today, and that just wasn't the case back then. The only rum bar that I knew of was Smuggler's Cove, the tiki bar with an incredible rum selection down in San Francisco, and that was sort of like it for what was available. Rum Club in Portland opened right around the same time as Rumba, so that was kind of a fun kind of growing together in the Pacific Northwest. But yeah, there wasn't a lot of information. There also wasn't a lot of rum. We had to get real creative and look, far and wide, even to try to fill the shelves. I remember the bottles were spaced like this much apart, and we had this whole section of Madeira, because the history of rum and Madeira is so intertwined. And when we opened, like, we had like 60 Madeiras, which I think we just ended up pouring in punch, because also nobody was drinking Madeira back in 2012. But yeah, it was pretty wild. It was also really interesting to see the perception of the category of spirit change over the next 6 years, and sort of being at the forefront of watching the category develop, with front row seats behind the bar. So yeah, it was pretty wild. It was really cool though.
Yeah, and kind of speaking to that, and one of the things that I love about Rumba, and I've been there a handful of times, is that just the bar design alone is so beautiful. And if you think about it, I mean, it looks like a lot of like whiskey houses and stuff. You have this deep dark wood, but then there's also those bright pops of color, that kind of go throughout it, so it still makes it approachable and stuff. And I was just was that part of the design, to kind of like disarm people and like, hey, take rum seriously, so like it's going to have this aesthetic of a whiskey bar, but those aren't whiskey bottles, those are 700 bottles of rum.
Yeah. Well, we knew that we decidedly did not want to be a tiki bar. So tiki was never the vibe that we were looking for. It was really like a classic, like, old, comfortable, like, classic Cuban Havana style bar where, dark wood, belted fans with kind of pops of Caribbean nuances. So those beautiful high back chairs with their kind of deep turquoise color with the matching banquettes, and then lots of dark wood, lots of kind of low lights. We wanted it to be a sexy spirits bar that focused on rum and treated rum with the respect that we thought it deserved, because that just what, like, we'd never seen anything like that before. The whiskey scene in the Pacific Northwest and everywhere else is very familiar to this sort of, tall ceiling, huge back bar. On the West Coast, the back bars are much bigger than on the East Coast, I found out. But big, expansive back bar, low lights, the Edison bulbs that are now in every bar. With just sort of touches to remind you that it should be a Caribbean feeling, and fun music, so you feel Caribbean vibes, Caribbean dishes. And then the walls are basically wallpapered in classic postcards from like 1890 to 60 maybe. And a lot of them are written on either side, or written on the back. And I found this eBay guy who was selling like lots of like 250 postcards from Martinique from like this time period, and from Barbados from this time period, and Jamaica. And I bought as many as I could, and I literally stood on a ladder banging these postcards onto the wall. It's like 16 hours of my life hanging from a ladder, nailing postcards to a wall. But they're all totally real. From a ways back, it looks like wallpaper, but they're all like totally authentic, real postcards from, a long time ago. But, the bar design was really Travis, the boss, and my boss and the owner. He has a really incredible eye for design. It didn't always work with being a working bartender behind that design. Sometimes it's like, this is beautiful and so inefficient, but it looks pretty. But aesthetics, man, he does a really great job. So he really wanted a sort of S-curve bar. The thought was that if the store next door ever went out, that sort of round shape would just continue into the next door space. So we had the ability and flexibility to expand, which they're totally doing now. And I'm so excited. They're opening a little tiki bar next door that'll be like the entrance, I think, will be through Rumba, last I heard. I'm not sure what's changed. So they'll have like a cool little tiki bar. So all the tiki stuff from Rumba can be focused there, and it'll be like super well done, beautiful, more tiki tropical than classic Cuban tropical. But yeah, he has a really great eye for aesthetic. We spent a long time plotting it out and planning. It was really just an empty room, so everything was built from spec. And kind of, I remember when it opened, it felt very much like a Tommy Bahama catalog. Like it was almost too perfect. Um, and it really took like a few months of people just living in it, like a little bit of wear and tear to feel authentic, like kind of classic vibe, and not just like, oh, I'm like sitting in a weird magazine. It needed some lived in love. But there's a lot of really personal touches. There's like all of the bar managers' picture frames on the shelf, and a wall filled with all of our guests that have ever completed the rum map, which was 60 rums as a tasting map that you had to go through. And if you completed it, you got your name on the wall. So there's like this whole wall of plaques of all of our now friends and regulars. So it's really like kind of an involved personal space that just is meant to make people feel comfortable walking in. Maybe you stop short and say, damn, I didn't know that there was this much rum in the world. But there's a lot of handholds to sort of get people interested, and make you kind of want to sit down and explore a little bit.
Yeah, well, and I think that is kind of a perfect segue into talking about some of the different things that and people that you've had. So, one of the other people that has come out of Rumba is Jim Romdahl, and
Yeah,
and I
Jimmy
just
Jam.
he's a happy hour alumnist. So
Oh,
he's been in your
cool.
position,
I'll have to
and
look up his talk. I love my gym.
it was good. We had it was a cane discussion, and it was a lot of fun coming
Freezing.
out
Are
of
you
it.
there? Is he freezing for you guys too? Yeah. Okay. I think you just froze for a minute. You're
Am I
back.
back now?
You're back now.
Okay. Yeah. Apparently, all my neighbors are using the internet right now, I guess. Um, so what I was asking was people like Jim Romdahl and the other talent that's come out of Rumba. I mean, a lot of that starts with you and cultivating that environment to create all these rum experts that now have these great uh, I guess positions within the industry, because now Jim's obviously with Novafogo. Uh, how did you do that?
Yeah.
How did you create such a cool environment where like you've now given the world more experts through your leadership?
Oh, that's like the nicest thing anyone's ever said. I love that. I really hope that that's true. I mean, if the legacy is that there's more people who know things, that's great. Um, when we opened, my bar manager wasn't Jim. It was this gentleman named Connor O'Brien, and Connor and I kind of opened the bar together. And he was the guy around town who knew everything about rum. Um, and so when I, knowing nothing about rum, started asking my bartender friends, who in this town could I hire to be our bar manager? Like, who loves rum? Everybody just said, you have to talk to Connor. Um, and Connor was a total purist. To this day, he makes some of the very best cocktails that I ever drink. He taught me so much about rum. He was really a walking encyclopedia for the category. He knew so much, it blew my mind. He knew, everything about all the bottles, and me being very new to rum was just like, what? And his sort of specialty was classic Cuban cocktails. And so he was very straight, very serious, but just such a wealth of knowledge about the category of spirit that he taught me a lot. And then I started traveling to the Caribbean and learning a lot myself. Jim came along about maybe a year and a half after we were open. And Jim was kind of the opposite, where he was so fun. Like, you just wanted to sit at Jim's bar. You wanted to he just brought such a vibrant energy. So, Connor really taught me about rum. And then Jim really taught me that rum should also be fun. And that there's, a kind of a time and place for the knowledge and the serious and the perfectly crafted cocktail, but also there's such a time and place for, silliness and daiquiris on tap, and sort of this creative fun environment to make people want to come hang out at the bar. So yeah, Jim and I managed that bar together for about 4 years, 3 years. And yeah, he's a blast. I love Jim. um, he left to go take the position with Novo Fogo, and there was a bit of an interim period, but now Jen Aiken is totally kicking ass. She's been managing since I left, which was 3 years ago now, which is crazy. But she's really doing so much to kind of continue our legacy, to continue convincing people that they want to drink rum, and that it is a fun and delicious spirit. We always say that rum is by far and away the most diverse category of spirit. And here's all of the different ways. So if you're really into gin, like, you'll probably dig these. If you're really into whiskey, maybe you'll dig these. Really anything that you say. I kind of always refer to rum like sandwiches. Like, maybe you ate too many peanut butter and jellies as a kid, but a turkey club is delicious, or a meatball sub, or there's just so much diversity in the category of sandwiches that you can't say, I don't like sandwiches, because there's too much to like and not like. So it's really a question of finding the sandwich that's right for you, or the rum that's right for you. So that's kind of the mission there. The other thing that I always try to drive home is that there's no I in rumba. Um, it was always at rumba we do this. I don't really like the sort of culture of star tenders, or like one person kind of being the star of the show, and you walk into the bar and they're not there, so you turn around and leave. Like, that just kind of sucks for everybody. So I really wanted everybody to feel like they had um, you know the right to be there, the wealth of knowledge to answer questions, the confidence. We did a lot of training, but I really wanted everybody to kind of feel like they had some ownership of the program, of the bar, and it wasn't just like the Kate Perry show or the Jim Rondell show. So I always said, at Rumba we do this because it's a team effort. You
Nice.
froze up for a little bit there, but hi, I see you're back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, because I have no idea what's going on. Of course, this is issues that pop up during live broadcast of things, and my screen kind of has like this gray thing over the top of it. So I'm like, I don't know. I know there's two of me now, Because
There's 3 of you actually.
there's 3 of me now.
There is,
Oh,
yeah.
well, I just wanted to bump up your numbers.
Man,
So
you're like a superhuman.
yeah, well,
Can duplicate yourself.
this is what I do. I'm just glad that people can still hear, so that makes me happy. And then they can still hear you, which is obviously the most
I saw
important.
people nodding and smiling, so I figured I could just keep talking.
That's kind of like you kind of look for that validation the whole time, right?
I was
It
like, am
trips
I
me out.
frozen too?
Yeah. Who knows?
Melissa hears me. We're good.
Yeah. Cool. 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 Well, yeah, because I can't see anything else now. I don't know what's going on, but I'm gonna try not to touch anything else. But I do have 2 screens going, so we'll
Cool.
just make sure we don't lose me at any point. And whether or not this is being recorded anymore, I have no idea. So
No clue.
so we'll see. But I think that's great. And and again, when you talk about a bar program that has only had like a small handful of managers over a long period of time, I just think that really speaks to a culture, right? That people want to be there, they want to grow with the bar, and they want to put their own stamp on it, like you said. So I think it's really cool that you were able to do that. And then as a manager, what did you do to, or and just maybe just in rum in general, like you are considered one of the experts in the field, like people actively seek out your opinion on things. And what was that process like how did you build yourself up from, okay, I have never ran a rum bar before, to now being like this go-to panelist for so many people and so many people that want your opinion?
It's funny because I remember like day 3 of Jim Romdahl working with me. And I said, hey, Jim, I'm going to be totally straight with you. I don't like interviews. I don't like the press. I don't like any of this like Kate Perry stuff. If you can like take care of like the face of the business, designing, a kick-ass rum back bar. I want to do, the sort of deep knowledge building work. I'm a clean freak behind the bar. I want everything organized and perfect. Like I really wanted to manage the program and manage the team and build that. And I just didn't have any time for the sort of like interviews and like recipe requests and like that whole side of it. So I don't know. I really made Jim do all of that. And he's so good at it. He's so personable that I was just like, please take care of that. Which he still teases me about sometimes. But yeah, it just sort of, it comes with the territory a little bit if you're doing something a little bit, different and you're doing it presumably well. It's really nice when people take notice. Um, I never like really lived for like the listy stuff or to be whatever, but it's really nice for staff morale to be recognized as being one of the top rum bars in the country, and getting some publicity is really nice for everybody involved in it to sort of say, oh, like people are noticing all this hard work that we're putting in. That's really cool. So yeah, I don't really know. I guess I sort of hit a moment where I I started doing speed rack because it was really out of my comfort zone. And I remember getting some emails from like other women in the community and in the region who said, hey, like, I'm too afraid to do that, but I saw you do it and like you really kicked ass. And now next year, I think I'm going to try to do it. And thank you. And I kind of realized that like there's not a lot of women in management roles, or at least there wasn't back then. Now there's so much more, which is amazing. But if I could just sort of be a voice for maybe a female busser host who maybe says, oh, I've always wanted to get into bartending. How did you do that? That was, just really kind of gave me a place for it, where I said, oh, like this world needs more female mentors. So I guess I have to just step up and do that. Speed Rock is a really awesome women's sort of charity situation where it's probably the most intense cocktail competition that exists. It's hosted by Ivy Mix and my favorite human that I'm spacing on her name. I'm so
Nah.
sorry. Lynette. Oh God, I love Lynette. I want to see Leanne. See, I've been out of the country too much. And Lynette Mararo, who are just incredible humans, and they started this charity competition for breast cancer, and it's like crazy fast paced. It's all based on speed, and the women who compete in it are just like the most intense, awesome, fast, brilliant. I mean, I'm talking like 40 seconds for 4 perfect cocktails. Like, it's really, really wild. You should
It's
look
an
up some
insane.
videos. They're really intense. It's so much fun.
Yeah, it's really it's up in that upper echelon of like most respected competitions as well. And it's really,
Yeah.
really cool. I've had some friends who have competed in it, and it's really fun to see them prepare for it, and then hopefully succeed in that. But ultimately, obviously it's not about winning, but it's such a cool competition. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Catherine, definitely check it out. You'll get a kick out of it. It's
Yeah. It's super good vibes. They're
yeah,
expanding so much too. I just saw that they did Speed Rack Australia, and they're doing some Speed Rack Asia, Canada. Like,
that's
they're
awesome.
really like taking over the world and really promoting female bartenders, and in a real like cool way. I mean, it's really difficult. It's super intense.
Yeah, and I really like your mentality towards it, where it's like, okay, well, I guess I am a leader, even somewhat
Yeah.
reluctantly. That you're just kind of like, well, if not me, then who? So,
Right.
um,
Whether or not I want to be, people are looking up to me, so I guess I better get my shit together.
so in regards to like kind of growing that profile and stuff like that, like you had mentioned, there wasn't all of those resources back then that we kind of have access to it now, but it's important to stay like on top of things, right? And so I'm curious, like, do you have any suggestions for people at home, on this call who eventually listen to this, like, if you want to learn more about rum, these are some resources that you should look into. Like, is there something that you still use today, or books that you're like, hey, this is just an absolute go-to that you have to read?
Yeah, I have three.
Okay.
The first is Wayne Curtis's And a Bottle of Rum. It was required reading for everybody on my team. He just put out a new edition too, which is really good. The updated is great. But it's so good at kind of the historical culture of rum. It's not really a technical book at all, but he's a great storyteller. He's a great writer. He's me and at least two other people on here, previous landlord. Hi guys. Um, but Wayne is just like a fantastic human and really, really good at conveying sort of the historical culture of rum. So his book for sure. Tristan Stevenson's Rum Revolution it's great. It's by island, by distillery. Here's what they do. Here's what they're known for. Here's their style. That book was super, super helpful for me. And then I just did WSET's Level 3 in Spirits back in November. And WSET's Level 3 in Spirits book is awesome. If you want sort of the technical information across all spirit categories about fermentation, distillation, rules, legislation, like everything, this book is such a good source for kind of learning about spirits in general. The rum section is quite good. It's really factual. Then the best book that's probably written, I've never read it myself because it's in French. My boss, Luca Gargano, wrote a book called Atlas to Rum, which I keep prodding him to do an English copy because I don't read French. But I've heard it's absolutely incredible. Sometimes I need to get somebody who speaks and reads French to read it to me someday.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And again, doing a few of these talks and having some people involved in the rum industry, and Wayne Curtis's book was my like aha moment as well. Where
Yeah,
I was just like, I was like, wait a minute, this is the coolest stuff in the world. Why aren't we all talking about this all the time?
yeah.
So that's really cool here. And then Tristan Stevenson, he does the whole Curious Bartender series, is definitely the book that I recommend for everybody, whether it's his whiskey one, his gin one, but Rum Revolution is just like, oh my God,
It's so good.
I
He
loved
did
how it,
such a great job.
yeah, and like you said, how he laid it out. It's approachable. Anytime that you think like there's no way that he wrote about this distillery, and then you look it up and you're like, oh my God, he wrote about this distillery,
Yeah, it's
So
everything is there. It's great. Yeah, I
yeah.
think he did a really great job.
So and I haven't read the WCT, but that is in my plans to eventually get that certification and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
you should check it out. You don't have to take the class to get the book. You can just buy their book off of their website. And I just saw that Nick King is up for a Tales nomination. He just made top 10 for that book, which for a WSET textbook to get a Tales nomination of best 10, I was like, pfft, but also so deserved. Like it's such a great book.
That's cool.
I brought it with me so I could read it again while I'm here in South Africa. So I was like, man, I don't think I got everything out of it that I need to get out of it. I need to give that another once over.
Well, the fact that like Wayne is coming out with an updated edition, I'm super super excited about that because I've actually been wanting to read it again because of so many people have talked about like how great the book is. And so I'm definitely going to do that. And if I'm gonna read a WSET book, I'm gonna take the test because I mean, come on, you gotta, if you're gonna put the time in, you might as well get
Yeah.
the certificate out of it. So in reading interviews that you've done before and listening to podcasts and other forms of interviews that you've been on, one of the things that you said about your current role is that it really is your dream job because of the way that it's set up. Like, you are now an ambassador just for rum around the world. You're not limited to one distillery, one producer, or anything like that. And I love how you kind of got the job. And so I was hoping that you could retell the story of how you got this job and how you kind of just made it your job, didn't really give them a choice.
Yeah, I really felt like I didn't have a choice. I, like so many people that I know, back, God, 10 years ago now, um, whenever I would travel, I mean, standing in front of a bar of 700 rums is a lot. And knowing enough to speak about every single rum on that back bar is a lot. But the stuff that just inspired me the most when I would pick up a bottle and be like, man, this is just like incredible, inspiring liquid. This is something different. This is something just really, really important. Every bottle that I turned around, there's this little word Velier on the back. And I got into a bit of a obsession with Velier, as a lot of people do. And I just sort of felt that every sort of rabbit hole in rum that I would jump down, be it wild fermentation or tropical aging or, the sugar wars or sort of anywhere that you want to go, you kind of end up at Velier because they're just that company. So I started traveling quite a bit, and everywhere I would go, I would grab as many Velier bottles as I could, shove them into my suitcase, come back, not put them on my back bar because that would be totally illegal. I definitely put them on my back bar. You can't get that much rum without a little bit of gray market. But it just became that company for me that was just like the company that was doing it differently and doing it in a way that really resonated with me. I come to rum through the guise of anthropology and geography. I have 2 degrees, one in each. So I love people and I love places, and I love traveling. So my goal was always to get a job that would pay me to travel. And so when my phone buzzed and I got an email from Daniele Biondi, and he said, ciao, Kate, we got your name and we'd like to invite you to come to Haiti with us and tour Clahen distilleries. Like, my jaw fell on the floor and people were concerned about me. And I was like, it's okay. It's just Velier. And they're like you're Velier. I'm like, I'm gonna go to Haiti with them. It's fine. And I remember Daniele told me, and Luca brought this up a couple of days ago on a chat we were having, that Daniele, I said, Kate, going to Haiti, it's going to change your life. And he was so right in like way more ways than either of us thought. It totally changed my life, like in every direction. And so I came back from that trip and I just felt like, you have such an understanding of rum that is so removed, where you talk about the spirit and you talk about what's aged in, you talk about like how you drink it and which cocktail, and like it's this over the bar conversation. But to be in a place where it's just so ingrained and embedded into everyday life, where it's not something special, because Clahen for me is like the most special thing ever, and for them it's a grocery item, right? You get your chicken, you get your vegetables, you grab a bottle of Claren in a plastic bottle like this, and that's just normal life. It's not revered like I feel like we revere this sort of ancestral technique of production. um, and so to sort of experience that firsthand just sort of made all of my rum just kind of click into place a bit, where I was like, oh, this is just real life for people, this is culture. um, and so I knew that Luca was going to be at Tales of the Cocktail that year. And I entered Tea Punch Cup with the Clement Spiribomb crew, because if you won your area, you got to go compete in New Orleans at Tales of the Cocktail. And I thought, man, if I can win this, maybe I can run into Luca. And I did, and I went to New Orleans. And I wish I knew who it was that told me this, because I would give them like the biggest hug. But somebody told me once that whoever you want to run into at Tales of the Cocktail, go to the Monteleone at like 1:30 in the morning and they'll show up. And so I decided to test this theory. I called my buddy Zhang Kong and I said, hey, where are you? He said, oh, walking back to the hotel. And I said, okay, great. I'm waiting for you here. Let's meet up and have a drink. So I had like a backup plan. And then I just sat down on the couch and I waited. And sure enough, like 3 minutes later, Luca comes in. Kate, what are you doing? Let's go drink gin and tonic at the carousel bar. And we did until silly o'clock in the morning. And he said, so what are you doing? And I said, well, I really want to go back to Seattle and quit my job and work for you. Like, it's the only thing that makes sense in my life. This is the only thing that I want, right? It's my dream job, but it wasn't like an option. It was just my path. And I told him that, and he said, okay, well, tomorrow let's go and have a lunch. We did. And we sat for 2 hours as he showed me all of his portfolio, and we chatted. And he said, okay. And my now colleagues tell me that I guess he went back to Italy and he walked into the Velier office and he said, okay, now we have Kate Perry. She takes care of the US. And they were like, what? What are you talking about? But Luca is very passionate, and he's very decisive, and he's a very good judge of situation and character. And when he gets an idea and knows something, he just goes with it. And so I'm very, very lucky that he said, okay. And so I went back to Seattle. Didn't really know what was happening because I didn't really get any confirmation, any information, until about September of that year, where they said, okay, so when can you be in New York? And I said, well, when do you need me there? And it was like 3 weeks out. So I turned my whole world upside down, moved to New York in late 2017, and then we launched La Maison and Velier in New York in January of 2018. So it was very rapid, really fast, a total whirlwind, but I wouldn't have had it any other way.
That's just I really appreciate you answering that question, because it was one that I heard recently on an interview, but you were able to expand quite a bit more, and I love that I got more of the content. So that makes me really happy, and I think it's one thing I've tried to convey to people, through doing these interviews and reaching out to certain people is like a question I often get now is like, well, how did you get that person? And I was like, I asked.
Yeah.
and I feel like because we're all kind of in the same boat, that we're all really passionate about these spirits, and whether it's whiskey or rum or agave, and people want to talk about the things that they're passionate about. And as long as you're probably not like a complete stranger, like people are usually willing to say yes. And I think that, and also in hearing your story and just putting yourself out there and kind of being like, this is what I want. I know you
Yeah.
say that like it was your path. Like that's so cool, and that it worked out that way. And you kind of talked about it already, but with your degrees in anthropology and geography, like how does that play in now, like more than ever before, for like your daily job?
It's funny. So I wanted those degrees because I basically wanted to be Indiana Jones. I wanted to like, get paid to travel and like meet people and see places and like do research on cultures. And I feel like I was really hard on myself because the culture or the kind of reputation of bartending isn't one of, it's changed a lot in the last decade. But okay, so like I spent 4 years going to school. I still have all this debt, and like I'm just a bartender, which was me internalizing like, when are you going to do something with your degrees, Kate? um but I loved it, and I loved the community with it. And I really think that I was setting myself up for now, because I really sort of fell into rum and developed this great passion for rum, where now rum is just sort of my like sight glass into the things that I loved before. Like I just look at people and places and culture through the sight glass of rum. Because it's so true. You go to Jamaica and there's rum everywhere, and people are so proud. And you drink Ray and Nephew neat all the time, like water. And you go to Grenada and you drink River Antoine, and you go to Barbados and there's such a cultural identity with these spirits, and there's such an interesting history with the distilleries and the rum and like all of the craziness. And rum is such a it's just such a wealth of topics to discuss, and there's so much going on, and a lot of it's really brutal, but it's not the fault of the spirit, it's the fault of humanity. So also you're understanding human culture through this guise of um, you know the situations that happened throughout the years regarding rum and sugarcane production. A lot of it was really, really, really bad, because humans aren't always good. So it's sort of a continuation of my love of people, my love of places, and my love of rum. And it's it's really interesting. I'd love to sort of, I don't know, think about writing a book someday of like the anthropology of rum or something like that, because the people from these places where the spirit comes from are just the most incredible, happy people ever. Rum is fun. The culture and the community that exists over a bottle of rum is just really, really special. And also the culture and the community that exists around bartenders and my supplier friends and my producer friends, and like the culture of sort of modern day rum in really globally. Like rum brings people together. It's really, really cool to see. I have friends all over the world through this thing that we enjoy drinking. Like it's really crazy, but it really builds community. So it's kind of a special thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. And again, you just kind of keep setting me up for these awesome segues. So currently you guys have, you obviously have the rums, you have the clarin, and then you guys also have a new mezcal lineup as well. And I think one of the things that I admire most about you is that you're able to maintain this almost Sweden-like status in this very controversial world, where people have really strong opinions about this or really strong opinions about that, and you just kind of stay above the fray, right? You never really kind of get down into it. And I just, I I'm not as skillful as that, and I'm trying to be better. But how do you do that? Like, how do you not get yourself into that muck? Like, how are you kind of able to be like, yeah, I mean, I get it. I know you guys are upset, but I'm going to stay up here and we're going to talk about this instead.
I mean, thank you. That's really nice to hear. Sometimes I feel like, oh God. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of heated conversations that happen, for sure. The thing that I really love about my portfolio as a whole, like really everything that we work with is about showcasing the producer, the production style, the region, the cane varietal, the things that are important as the protagonist of the range. It would be much easier to be, an independent bottler who just, writes their name on a thing and shows it to the world. But it's, part of the reason that I love the company and that I so respect and cherish my bosses, Luca Gargano and Thierry Benatat, is that they take the time to make sure that um, the labor of the bottle is recognized. The people who produced it is recognized. The place that it comes from has recognition. The details involved are recognized. And I think that if it's just such a privilege for me to wake up every day and talk about the clan of Michel Sajus, because I have so much respect for Michel Sajus, or, Hamden Estate, where, I know them, they're good friends of mine. And I get to talk about their spirit. And that's a lot of like responsibility and a lot of trust, and a lot of pressure, mostly that I put on myself to make sure that I'm doing a good job for them because I really care. So it kind of makes it a little bit easier not to get so involved in all of the muck, not the fun kind of muck.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, I'm representing Hamden Estate. Like my job is a dream job. I'm representing my favorite distillery in the world. I get to talk about Claren and wild fermentation and old varietals of sugarcane and the culture of Haiti. I get to talk about, single estate producers of mezcal with their faces on the bottle, or the cognac of Fanny Fougerat, or, Mulisano vermouth and the old ways of vermouth de Turin and what that should mean. So everything that we do is sort of walking this line between agriculture, the production of real things made by real people with real materials and hands, and then the distillation, or capturing the soul of those elements into the spirit in the bottle that we get to drink. And there's this sort of linear path through all of the bottlings that we represent. Nothing is random. Everything has a story and has real people behind it. So it makes it really easy. I never feel like I'm like a rum salesman or I have to like sell things. I just get to be a storyteller and talk to people about these, incredible humans who make beautiful things with the best raw material possible. It's really a dream.
That's awesome. And yeah, you definitely do. And I think a lot of people forget that even behind some of these brands, it's like, people are feeding their families with this stuff. Like when you
Yeah.
say the things that you do, like
That's a lot of responsibility.
yeah, like maybe relax a little bit. All right, so we're gonna shift it up a little bit, and I'm gonna take it a little bit easier on you and not ask you like these existential questions anymore. So going to the deep dive and getting into page 9 of the Google search and stuff like that. You find old interviews and stuff like that. And there's a lot, but my favorite one was from 2013. You gave suggestions on 3 different categories of rum. So one of it was for mixing, one of it was for sipping, and then one was a category of like what you trade for something else. And so it was really, really interesting because it's a 2013 perspective. So I want to
Oh,
see,
I wonder what I said in
yeah,
2013.
yeah. So imagine, so again, we're not going to hold you to this, but I wonder how many of these still ring true for you. All right. So for your rums that you recommended for mixing, you said Plantation 5 year,
Uh-huh.
Smith and Cross, Bank 7, and La Favorite Blanc.
Cool.
So I was like, cool. She's been nailing it for years, right? Um, Sipping rums, you did the Abuelo 12, the Angostura 7, anything from Plantation, and the La Favorite Privilege.
Oh man, that bottle of La Favorite Privilege. I drank the last ounce of that. They saved it for me. I loved that bottle.
So
That's
that one
delicious.
still rings true.
I haven't had it since then, but
And then this is easily my favorite one. And it was a little hard to understand, but then once I kind of understood the concept. So basically the question was, what do you trade of like a well-known product to get something that's cooler? Okay. And so you gave 3 recommendations and they were kind of like, all right, whatever. But you had one that was you trade a bottle of Captain Morgan because it's super well known and you didn't really get too controversial with it. But you trade it for this really great spiced rum that's made in Barbados called Foursquare.
yes.
So I was just like,
I love their spiced rum, man. I feel like it doesn't get nearly enough attention, but their Foursquare spiced rum is.
well, and I think it's because again, you start talking with some of the more controversial people, and they're like, oh, they don't consider spiced rum great. It's like, oh man, you guys are crazy. I love spiced rum, so especially when it's well made, Um,
Yeah.
so do you still stand by all of these recommendations? Is there one that you kind of?
No.
I won't again because I know you stay above the fray, but we won't point out which one or two you would change at this point.
Yeah, but back in 2013, God, we'd been open for a year. Like, the amount of stuff that was available just wasn't what it is today. And the amount of information about that stuff was like nothing.
Right.
I mean, all you had is like, I don't know, maybe there was like an article. I was pretty lucky in Seattle because I did have some really incredible sort of colleague mentor support system, um, which was really cool. I mean, Nick Ferris helped me out a lot when I was sort of early navigating rum. He's been importing Rumfire, so we're
Mhm.
kind of colleagues now, which is fun. Since God, I don't know, 2015. I think it was just Jamaica and Seattle for a long time having Rumfire. But he's a great wealth of information. Um, Matt Petrick was my local barfly. He was sitting at my bar most nights of the week. I won't go into how many. Um,
Well, I
but
mean,
he was
considering him now, I think we can make some safe assumptions about how often he was there. So
yeah, he was always around. Federico, who now does all of the rum festivals, he's from
Mhm.
Seattle. So there was actually like quite a little kind of weird mismatched rum um fan club, and Rumpa kind of like was the glue that started connecting all of these dots, and getting this sort of community really like together, which was very cool. um, but yeah, there wasn't a lot of information and there wasn't much rum available. Like, you have no idea how hard it was just to get a back bar with some diversity of the spirit, because there just wasn't much really. So it doesn't surprise me that those bottles are all on there, because it's pretty representative of like what the cool stuff was.
Yeah,
Which,
yeah,
the world has definitely changed since then. In the last 5 years, it's been absolutely incredible to see all of these brands that I had to shove into my suitcase or order from abroad start to become readily available in the market, which is just so important, so cool. And I'm so happy for all of the producers and their success, and all of my bartenders who now get to use and access all of this cool stuff that just didn't exist or
yeah,
wasn't available. It was really hard to get.
yeah. No, it's definitely you got to consider the context of the year and stuff like that. But it's fun to kind of look back on those things and be like, wow, the world's really changed, and my thoughts
Yeah,
towards things have really changed.
totally.
So and I think what also needs to happen is there needs to be a book written about like kind of the rum renaissance that happened in the Pacific Northwest, you know, and kind of like this hub of
Yeah.
all these, because there's so many people that, you know, we're just really touching the surface of how much influence there is now. But speaking of books, eventually when your memoir comes out, what is going to be the title of that book?
Oh man. Probably, I mean, the easy answer is my Instagram handle, When in
Right.
Rum.
Yep.
Um, which Maggie Campbell at Privateer has a When in Rum bottling coming out. She was kind enough to let me shadow distill with her husband, and we had a great day at the distillery. At the end of the day, she came up with a sticky note and slapped it on the blending vat, and it said When in Rum, distiller jar release May 2nd. I was like, what? And she was like, oh, we're bottling this. I was like,
Nice.
yes. But you know, that really comes from people coming into the bar, looking around and being like, oh, I didn't realize this was a rum bar. Because like you said, it looks like a fancy spirits bar, or a whiskey bar.
Yeah.
I'm like, yep, every bottle. They're like, oh man, maybe I should try a rum then, huh? When in rum.
That's
It's been my
cool.
handle probably since 2013, because I just said it so many times, like, when in rum, maybe you should have one.
Yeah, that's great.
You
That's a
know?
great title. I think you should
Yeah,
definitely
get
do
out
that.
of your comfort zone, try something new.
Yeah. And then if you had the ability to, I guess, you know, snap your fingers and almost pull a Thanos on the rum world, what's the one thing that you would just change that could be an instant change that you think would that you would do in the rum industry?
Um, the recognition that the recognition and the control that our blessed TTB has, on bottlings and where they come from and the information that you have to put on a bottle, for sure. In the world of whiskey, for example, there's 42 different subcategories in whiskey that you have to choose from to label your whiskey and sell it in the US, which means that we know that a bottle of single malt scotch is different than Johnny Walker, is different than Drambuie. These are three different categories because they have different categorical respect and restrictions from the TTB. But for rum, there's nothing. It's zero, which means that every rum is just called rum, which means that there's no respect towards the provenance of the islands, and where it's produced and what rum means to them. You can literally take any bottle, write whatever you basically want on it, and call it what it's not. So yeah, it's really difficult to navigate the world of rum, specifically in the US, because there just isn't a real system with respect to the people and places that it comes from that is recognized and enforced.
Yeah.
So I would like for the TTB to, I don't know, think of rum as like a real spirit with real complexity. um,
Yeah.
that would be really
Absolutely.
great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And maybe
Uh,
let us bring in 70 CL bottles so that we can have all the cool stuff too.
I mean, right? That is just the
Come on.
that just kills me how much stuff we don't get because of that.
Ah,
Um,
yeah.
so
There was a glimmer of hope for it where I thought that it was going to change. And it's so two-sided too, because we can't import 70 CL, and it's expensive for custom bottles and 75 just for one market. But also think about all of our exports, right? All of our local producers have to do a custom 70 CL bottle if they want
right.
to think about exporting. Like, it's just so stupid. Come
There's
on.
multiple things, yeah, that we do that's just
Yeah.
dumb. And then, so my final question for you, and then we'll open it up to everybody else, is, you know, being in the leadership role that you're in, being, you know, not only a pioneer at the University of Denver, but really in the rum world now. Um,
Cute.
how do people become the next Kate Perry? What's the advice that you'd like to impart onto either a young bartender, a new bar manager, a new rum enthusiast? What are the things they should do?
I think that if you, like, for me, I didn't want a brand job. It wasn't something that I was like looking for. It was just there's one company I would work for and they're never coming to the US, so that's safe. And then, oh shit, they're coming to the US. Like, that's what I'm going to do, right? Um, I guess just like, if you're not totally in love and passionate and have like, if you don't like have a passion for a thing, you could be selling anything, right? It doesn't matter what it is. It could be chocolate bars or vacation rentals or glasses. I don't know. So find the thing that like moves you. Find the thing that you're like, man, I could do this for the rest of my life. And chase that. Chase the thing that makes you happy. Chase the thing where you feel like there's never an end to the learning for it. I mean, taking this job was a very steep learning curve for me, you know, managing a little rum bar in Seattle to managing a country of, you know, importing and distributing and TTB and analysis of stuff and all of the communication and, you know, culture and personalities and connections. And it's so much. So I don't know, like if you can't stand behind it and if you don't wake up every day thinking, man, I'm so excited that I get to do this for a living, like don't do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, so find that thing where you wake up every day thinking, God, I'm so lucky that I get to talk about this and they pay me for
Right.
it.
I feel the same way. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It really is great. So with that, does anybody have any questions for Kate while we still have her? Just type them into the chat, or you can unmute yourself if you want. Now it's a free for all, so no peer pressure, of course. I know we've covered a lot of stuff, and Kate has been very thorough with her answers as well.
I love that Melissa's on here. Can I tell you a quick little story?
I would love it. Yes.
Because when we were launching Mulasano Vermouth,
Oh yeah.
she's like, I think the only person in the world who had ever heard of Mulasano Vermouth. And oh my God, she sent me a message and she was like, is this actually coming to the US? Like, is this for real? And I was like, yes. And she like flipped out. It was so great. And like I like sent her pictures of like these are the first bottles. So I love she has such like a personal story with Mulasano and it's such like a white whale for so many people, but being a total vermouth geek, I really just appreciated Melissa's excitement. So maybe you can tell us about your love of Mulasano vermouth, Melissa.
Well, I was going to Europe and I had a free weekend. It was 2012, I think. And I was reading Jason Wilson's Booze Hound, and he said that, like, I liked what you were saying earlier about how it's about people and places. And he was talking about how in Torino, every cafe used to have their vermouth and how Melisano is one of the last. And so my husband was like, what are we going to do with that free weekend? And I said, we're going to Torino. We're drinking vermouth. And so I really loved how that tied into what you were saying earlier about rum, because it's kind of just, that's what they did. So
totally.
Yeah. So we went there, and I did bring home a bottle, but it's long gone, and I never thought I would see it again.
Making magic happen. Yeah, at that time, if you wanted to drink Mulasano, you had to go to this cafe. It was the only place in the world until we started distributing it about a year and a half ago. So like it's wild. It's delicious. That that Bianco in a reverse Presidente, or just in a glass. It's so good.
And then Catherine would like to know how can we keep up to date on all the exciting adventures of Kate Perry? Oh,
that's my handle, When in Rum. Or you know, find me on the Facebooks. Here's my email. I love questions and comments. I think that I always let me send it. It's the longest email ever. There we go. I always sort of preface a lot of chats with like, rum is such a complex category, and there's so many opinions and perspectives and conversations, and there's just so much that like all I can do is ever speak about where I come from and what the truths that I've learned in my career in rum up to date. But that's by no means that that's true for other people. And so I love the conversations that I get to have with people where they're like, wait, you said this, but what about this? Because we're all learning together, right? we're all in this together. So if you have a question or want to chat about whatever, I'm pretty available to do so, especially now when we're all just hanging out on Zoom chats.
Oh, absolutely.
It's
Well,
the new social life.
you know, we got to make it work somehow, right?
For sure.
So yeah, does anybody else have any questions before we wrap it up completely? Like I said, no peer pressure if you don't. And now, you know, you do have Kate's email, so you can just blow her up. But
Yeah, blow me up.
well, you know, Kate, thank you so much.
Wait.
Oh, wait.
Ocean just accidentally sent me a question in the chat. Give him a second.
Okay.
Ocean, are you going to post it? I can move it. I think he's working too. There we go.
The anticipation. Oh, here we go.
Yeah. So the question is, we got Claren a couple years ago, something in the rum world that was totally new. Is there anything like that, a whole new category of spirit or rum coming to the US market? We have a couple of new projects that are definitely on their way, which is super exciting. I think that Claren is a really special circumstance where there was this island with 500 plus producers creating a category of spirit that no one had ever heard of. So we started releasing these bottles back in 2012 in Europe and 2018 in the US, working with producers as in a partnership. We started a little company called the Spirit of Haiti in Port-au-Prince, and that was just such a special situation. Like, it's so rare today to kind of have a whole category of spirit that no one really has any opportunity to engage with. So that's been really incredible. Luca just started a new little distillery in Haiti called Distillery de Port-au-Prince, and we'll have a rum from them, not a Claren, but a rum called Providence, which I'm really, really excited about. It's totally beautiful. We have a little bit of the unaged stuff coming, but this will be a rum produced for aging. So that's really exciting. In Europe, they just started releasing grog, which is basically Claren from Cape Verde, because there's 7 islands and I think 5 or 6 distilleries in Cape Verde that produce a spirit called grog, Grogue, which is, you know, small sugarcane based spirit that's produced for local consumption, just like Claren is to Haiti or cachaça is to Brazil, grog is to Cape Verde. So I keep crossing my fingers that someday we'll get that in the US as well. You know, I was chatting with Luca. He called me a couple of months ago and he said, I have to ask you about this and this. I said, okay. I said, where are you, Luca? And he said, well, now I'm in Italy, but I will take a plane and I will go to Colombia. And there's this group of people, you know, they escaped from slavery and they ended up in this little village, but you can only get there by a river boat. So you have to go on a boat for many, many days up this river in Colombia. And then you get to this small group of people and they produce a very nice sugarcane spirit there. And I have to go see it. So with Luca, you never know. When you think that everything is discovered and there's nothing left, Luca will discover the undiscoverable because he's just that cool. I went to school because I wanted to be Indiana Jones, and now I really just feel like I work for him. So it's pretty great. I get to reap all that benefit.
You're kind of like the short round in the Indiana Jones saga, you know?
Yeah.
Let's see here. And so Ed, do you see Ed's question?
Yeah, HERR, high ester reunion rum. So They don't produce HERR every year. It's their Grana Rome, so they produce a small amount, and then they use that to create complexity and depth in their spirits until they need more. So it's kind of like high ester Jamaica rum, where it was used as a flavoring agent to flavor other rums, to add esters and complexity and all of that depth to their blends of rum. So they don't produce HERR or hair every year. I don't know if the last time they distilled it was 2006 or not. I can't speak to that because I don't know. I don't know if Savannah themselves plan to launch in the US. I feel like I've seen a couple of bottles of Savannah around as their classic original brand. Their stuff is so great. They do really cool stuff. I was so hoping that I would be able to jump a quick little 6-hour flight over there to visit them, because I'm really interested in the distillery and what they're doing, because they do so much, like molasses and juice, pot and column. Their Grana Rome is super interesting. I don't know if the Habitation Velier HER, we had a tiny amount, like 500 bottles, and it disappeared really quickly. But I don't know if there's any plans to do other stuff. In that series, in Habitation Velier, that's the research of pot still distillation, and the only pot still rum that they have is the HERR, which is why it fits into that kind of research range. I hope that we get to see official bottling someday. I hope that they start bottling in 750, or the TTB gets their act together and lets in the 70 CLs, because everything I've tried to them has been super good. I really like what they do. But also from Reunion Island to the US is very far. So I'm not sure if I could go there, I would go ask them for you. So fingers crossed that this lockdown ends and I can travel again.
Yeah, no kidding, for sure. Anybody else? Let's see. Okay.
Cool.
I think we're good. Well, again, Kate, you're awesome. Thank you so much for doing
Thank you so
this.
much. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Of course, yeah. It was. I think we're all just trying to make the best of the situation, and this has been one of the weird, cool things that's come out of it. Hopefully, everything recorded. I have no idea right now,
We'll find out.
so we will find out.
What is time anyway?
Okay, right. So if it does record, we'll put this up on YouTube so people can share it. We have a really great list for the rest of the month. So if you guys are curious about that, you can add me on Facebook or on Instagram. It's dgarrison6. I put the schedule up there, and like Zan Kong is going to be on later this month. So I know he was mentioned today. He's super cool.
Hashtag we love Zan.
We definitely love Zan a lot. It's just amazing person. So, but everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, this is supposed to be kind of like a fun escape from this world pandemic that we're going through, and I hope that over the last little over an hour, you guys have enjoyed the conversation and got some good information from Kate. And stay healthy, stay safe, and hopefully we'll all get together soon and drink some rum.
Thanks so much. And one more quick little shout out. If you guys want sort of an opportunity to listen to my incredibly charismatic, wonderful boss, I'm doing an interview with Luca tomorrow at noon East Coast time. So 9 a.m. in California, I'm sorry,
Yep.
and 6 a.m. On Luca and my time zone. But you can check it out on La Maison and Velier's Instagram. It'll be a live Instagram that hopefully we'll be able to post for a while as well. But it's at La Maison and Velier at noon East Coast time. I'll be interviewing Luca.
Awesome.
So it's really fun to listen to him tell stories.
Well, you are a great storyteller today, Kate. Thank you so much again. And like I said, we'll see everybody soon. Stay safe. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Ciao, guys.
All right. Bye, guys.